Gotta unmute yourself.
One day, after 5 years of doing this, I will unmute. But in the meantime, starting to welcome folks to the group. Our numbers will pick up as the session goes. But I would like to first kind of give a brief of what we're going to talk about and then introduce you to some folks. So what we're talking about today is a wonderful paper done by Master Gwynneth. Specifically, the paper was called The Psychology of a SCA Fencing Woman, a Manual for Students and Teachers. This was written a little bit ago, and I read it during COVID, and there's been great conversations about it. I posted a link to the Sword Guides page, and there was a great podcast on it, and I really, really enjoyed it. We'll touch base on a couple things, but we're going to just have a conversation today about some of the topics through here. And again, this isn't just about SCA fencing women. This is really about training and coaching people. And there are lots of different people, and we are made up of a lot of different ways. And the biggest piece for us, and the thing we try to get to, is to help people understand others better so they can help them more. And while they're doing that, they get to learn how to help and kind of building good practices for people that they're trying to coach. And that is really why we even started this channel. So first, I'd like to welcome, I'm going to first introduce Sivrid, who is our producer today. I asked him to join the show. We had somebody else lined up, but we're pretty good at just letting kind of folks come and go. And then, of course, we have our other coach, been around for forever as well, Sir Sadb. And I have a feeling this is going to be mostly a talk between Sir Sadb and Master Gwen. Because I think they think a lot alike. I'm sitting over here going, I'm not going to have much to do, really. Other than bring up a couple comments and topics. So, and then of course, Master Gwynneth. Gwynneth, can you go ahead and kind of give us a little bit background? I'm on page 1 right here, right now, and why don't you give us a little background on the paper and why you did it, and your background.
Well, sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me here. I am so excited. My background is in psychology. I am a licensed mental health therapist. One of my specialties is trauma therapy. So when people are kind of like, well, where do you get off, writing this stuff? Like, because I'm trained to look at this type of psychological research literature and, and interpret it appropriately. This all started a number of years ago. The king and queen of the midroom at the time, Edmund and Katrin, they got the mods together, and the question that they posed was, when we look at just the numbers of authorizations, they found that 51% of authorized fencers in the midrealm were female, which keeps with like the general human population. But as we went farther and farther up the skill and recognition award levels, that number dropped precipitously. And they said, why? Why are there so few women at the grant and peerage level of fencing? The mods tried to put up, are they moving away to other interests? Or, are they taking care of small children? None of that accounted for it. And so then Master Kai, who was my teacher at the time, he came to me with this question with a little footnote. So that psychology degree you have? So I went, okay, I'll look into it. And what I found out is that what I really think it is how we teach. Very few of us here are trained teachers. Very few of us are trained in pedagogy. So we just try to do our best. We're like, well, here's what worked for me, or here's what worked for this person. Let me try it for you. Not necessarily a bad method, but when the way your brain is wired is fundamentally different from the way your student's brain is wired, you're going to end up butting heads in ways you don't realize. And what I was finding was I kind of, talked to, the people who are identifying as women, I was noticing the little frustrations and the little things that they didn't know how to deal with or how to overcome or what was wrong. And I went, okay, there is a lot here. And so that's what I delved into in terms of what are these psychological differences when we respond to combat or athletic training. How can we spread that information to have more success and have more women come into these upper levels? I will say real quick, the limit of my research was there's just not much out there right now for people who aren't in that male female strict gender binary. There's not a lot out there for trans individuals or non-binary individuals. So I had to limit my research to male female as much as I didn't want to, but that's for, a future, that'll be a future paper when there's more research out there. You're still muted, Brannos.
Sorry, I was bringing up some other pages so I could start typing in them. And they start talking, and then it gets ugly. But it's a great place to start because, like, what about everyone else? And that's literally in your paper, right? And I think it's important to understand that, even though yours is limited with the research you can find on the kind of female, that male-female scenario, I think it goes across a lot of lines, and that is not only is it male-female, but it's athletic, non-athletic, it's sports player, non-sports player, it's so and those aren't limited necessarily by sex, and the best part here is that they all come in learning different, and I think that's one of our biggest things that I keep trying to explain. It's stuff I've said on the show before. It's like, I think our last big influx, this newest influx of people, our early influx was people are very sports minded, had some type of sports background, and had some abilities that allowed them to kind of do what we do. So, early off, if you're not intimidated, if you're not afraid to get hit with something, if you're willing to be, something brand new and you're just going to plow head first and it's all about energy.
Yeah.
These people excelled, right?
A lot of early success.
That's correct. And now we'll talk about that later because it's changed quite a bit. But, in what I've seen in the last number of, and I think we see it even in fencing too, is our demographic has changed significantly. And now,
isn't it wonderful?
Yes, I know. And now we're getting a lot of people that haven't even played sports, or they're, we have a lot more people like, I've been gaming my whole life. I want to try some sports, but now we have to teach them from ground zero, where we never taught before. Right. Yeah. And that's where it really gets difficult. And I think this is going to be a great discussion to help people understand, hopefully, that they can help not only. There is a pretty big heavy mindset, and we'll talk about that around the female experience and culture. I talked to Sadb before about this. It's great that females could finally run a long distance race in 1970s, right?
Right.
So we talk
long ago.
Exactly. We talk contact sports. When can women do contact sports? I bet you it's 80s, 90s, and now I love posting. I watch this, and it still blows people's minds. But women have been taking over. It's the largest growing group sport in high school right now. It's women going into wrestling.
I love that.
They're going
so much,
50% a year more. And not only is that happening, and this is a conversational item, kind of like women boxers. But now it's so big that they had to start a whole women's wrestling. Yeah. This was co-ed women wrestling.
Yeah.
And in fact, we had one at practice. She's now she got a scholarship to a university, but she was at practice, and we had her throwing swords and doing the geeky stuff she called geeky. So it's, and even I had a long talk with her about it, but she was a state champion, 2-time state champion.
Yeah.
It's just amazing what we're seeing happen, but that's changing us. And I think the key is that we can't look at old dynamic and think that's a mistake.
Exactly.
So, So, so I think that's, what we're talking about here kind of transcends a lot of that stuff. And I think that applies to your, does this apply to other martial activities? And I think, you and Sadb touched on it earlier, that same mentality applies to, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Archery, heavy, armored combat, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? Go ahead, Sadb.
I can say, as a heavy fighter, reading your paper for the second time recently and going through it the whole way through, despite that fencing and heavy fighting are not the same fighting discipline, since what you were discussing is like teaching and training methods, I spent the entire paper just being like, yup, that's me, and have like running examples in my head of how we adapted or did stuff to help me learn, because I absolutely fit the things that you described for how women tend to learn better.
It's wonderful. Like, I had a suspicion that it all translated, but I'm not a heavy and I've never been a heavy, so I couldn't really say that with any authority, but you can.
Yes.
So it's interesting. We already had somebody ask, is how can we make the, let's go put it up. Ulfer. Yeah, there you go. How can I, as a male rapier fighter, facilitate women or people identifying rapier fighters? And I think this was the whole episode is going to be about this. And
let's dig in.
Yeah, that's 100%. And I think the big piece there is it's and you can take that, facilitate women, people identifying as women, people identifying male, but don't have the same mental learning ways that others
not
do.
Every man learns the same, and not every woman learns not every woman. I can grammar. Not every woman learns the same.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to talk about that because I think that's super important, and we're going to go from there. One in your paper, there's a piece I really love that you just call it out. It's like, research literature has indicated that most of this, the reason why people leave. And we see it in, I've taught, and this is not only now, and I've taught a lot of women fighters.
You've taught for a long time.
Yeah. And, at one point we had like 13 women fighters in the group at the same time. It was incredible. But almost all of them left. But it was because the mental training exercises 20 some years ago, I wasn't a good trainer. I fell into that same role. And believe me, I've been training that long. I trained really, I could train somebody already had that mental mindset, but I hadn't had learned to become a really good trainer at that. In other words, do it my way or ship out. And I'll pay you some attention. I'll give you some things to work on, but I'm not as, even though I think I'm, helping, I'm not sold on it. Right. I'm not invested.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the big problems I had back. And I'll call myself out 20 years ago on that. So, and of course, and guess what? I probably don't do everything right now. And sometime in the future, they're going to look back and say, well, that's not the right way yet either. It's times change.
Isn't that what science is? The pursuit of new learning and getting better information all the time.
100%.
But this question, it's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to creating a sense of safety, which, if my memory serves, is the first part of this paper. And it's creating a safe training environment. Because if people don't feel safe, they're going to leave.
Yep.
Now, there's many components to that. I think that's going to be another episode on creating a safe, welcoming, and inclusive practice. But like within, let's say, the student-teacher dynamic, and let's say your student is, in some way, however they slice it on this given day, female. And then same for the teacher today on this given day, however you slice it, male. There is a lot of history in that male-female dynamic going back at least as old as our civilization, if not prior to that, where if you are female, you have to run a fast diagnostic on every man you meet. And I see a big nod there. Like, it's semi-unconscious for us because we grow up learning.
Yeah,
We
it
have
is
to do
socialized
this.
into us by
Yep.
just observing the world.
Yeah.
And then there's the dichotomy between you guys probably also use the term lizard brain. Your automatic brain back here versus your prefrontal versus your prefrontal cortex up here, which is your thinky brain.
Right.
In therapy, we call it like that's where your wise mind is.
Yeah.
Those two will fight. Like I talk about how much I hate what I call the whack don't die method, which here, parry my sword. Bang. Well, you did it wrong. My brain is going to go, oh God, I was just attacked. But up here, I'm going, well, yes, of course I was attacked. I'm doing a martial sport. This is combat. Down here is panicking. Even if I'm going, this is Brannos. Brannos is a great guy. He'd never hurt me. I trust him. There's another part of my brain going, but he just did. Because our brains do not delineate between whack, you did it wrong, and smack. Why was dinner cold, or I didn't want chicken tonight. Our brains do not delineate between this is a training environment and say my partner or my father or my brother just physically assaulted me.
And I think actually, even on the second part of that, men react pretty much not in the same way. They react in a way that they have been trained in. Yeah. And that is, you hit me, mother. You hit me, motherfucker. I'm going to crush you now. Even if you're in practice. I don't know how many times I'm like, okay, we worked something. I'll tap them, and the next thing you know, they're in competition mode.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, oh, I'm going. I'm like,
yeah.
They hit you 2 or 3 times. It's like, bud, we were just working on some stuff here.
And in general, the female instinct is to retreat to a point of safety.
That's correct.
Which, if you ever read about home intrusions, frequently, for whatever reason, that is either the kitchen or the bedroom. But the problem with the bedroom is there's only one exit and the intruder's now in it. So if you maybe read about, somebody keeps a weapon in the bedside table, like maybe a gun, you may read the woman emptied the clip and reloaded, and you may be like, I'm pretty sure the first one got him.
Doesn't matter.
The pathway from here to here, when I say has shut off, I mean literally has shut off, because all she is thinking is I got to be safe. And if that thing keeps moving, I'm going to keep shooting it. And if I put a high speed bullet into it, it's going to twitch.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna jump. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't see you.
I had a sort of building on that is, yes, there is the lizard brain that's freaking out as you're getting hit, but this extends into, it sounds like, the future episode and or paper that you want to talk about, and that we have talked about before in various places of it, the whole environment. Yes. So particularly when a woman shows up to your practice for the very first time, she does not know any of you, does not know if you are a safe person or someone that is going to turn out to be a jerk, an attacker, a whatever, a bad person. So particularly when a woman is new to your space, you have to just be mindful that they are on high alert to start with. And then you add, physical attack into it, even though it is sports fun, playful physical attack. That is all just up there.
Yeah.
And I have had to explain this to one of my dear friends in our group. It was not specifically about fighting. It was something similar, but it was but she should know that I'm not a bad person. I'm not scary. And I'm like, but
she doesn't know that.
But I was like, you do not exist in a vacuum was the phrase I used.
Excellent.
You exist within the context of every other experience she has ever had in her whole life. So unfortunately for you, that means she does not necessarily know.
Yeah. And it's not, a lot of times it's not about you individually. It's about every other
that's the big part.
Interaction she's had. It's not about you. It's what about you. It's what you represent or what you make her brain think of.
Yeah. So I feel like a whole lot of happier environment can be had.
Yeah.
If guys just are aware of that fact and don't don't immediately take it personally and get offended or defensive.
Yeah.
When they can tell that a woman is kind of on edge.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think they should take it as a challenge to figure out how to make somebody, and it doesn't matter who, male or female, make somebody feel comfortable about coming to our sport and helping us have fun.
And it's, what can I do? It's not ask them, "Ooh, you look tense. What can I do?"
No, don't.
Step back.
Yeah.
One of the things I really talk about that my teacher, Master Kai, did with me, and then I found out, oh, hey, like there's actually some good psychology there, is we delineated when he would try to physically strike me and when he wouldn't. Whenever we were learning a new technique, and this is, I think, pivotal for somebody's first day or maybe their first few days, we all have blade control. You know, I can bring my sword up to somebody and not hit them with it. I'm sure you all can do a wrap shot and stop short. That's all you need to do. That allows us, that's a safe training environment. You know, if my opponent's blade stops right here, I can see I was about to get it in the face. You don't have to actually hit me in the face. I can see this. Because what happens otherwise for a woman, and why I hate this whack, don't die method, is what her brain starts to do is, oh, I'm being punished for trying. That's what her brain concludes. And so even if up here, she's trying to do it, back here is going, no, this is terrible. We don't like this. And she's going to fight worse and worse and worse until the two of you part in frustration, and she may or may not go hide in the bathroom and cry it out. I have a whole thing on the function of tears. Tears aren't
believe me, we cover it all the time.
Good. It's like, I have now trained all of the guys in my practice because they care about me. So if I'm upset, they want to fix it.
Don't fix it.
Yeah, and I just say I call it a data dump. I'm like, I just need to go data dump. I'm gonna cry it out. I'm gonna, I get my equilibrium, and then I'll come back, and then we can talk.
Yeah. In fact, go ahead, Sadb.
Yeah, it's like I want to tack on, because this whole tears thing is a big thing for me. This is like, and anytime someone asks me for, like, if you could tell me just like one thing about how to handle female fighters and whatever, and how to make it better, what I end up telling them, the one thing I do is when they cry, treat it like no big deal. Mm-hmm. Because as you talk about throughout your paper in various places, it's the whole creating a safe environment. And weirdly enough, the freedom to cry and not be baby treated, oh my God, are you okay? And have like everything shut down because of it. Or vice versa, the crying and everybody go, ugh, you're so weak and pitiful. And then like, mind. So like when you cry and the response is they stand back for a second and sort of check in with the, like, are you physically hurt or are you frustrated? And I'm like, frustrated, I'm mad. And they're like, cool. Okay. And he just takes a second and then goes, do you want to keep going? And then the ball is in my court. I get to decide what to do. And while crying, I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go.
And I'm like, if he was like, do you want to keep going? I'd be like, no, but I need to talk about it.
But like having the ball in my court and being empowered to decide what happens now and have that respected and not treated like lesser than if I say, no, I need to stop, and not treated any differently or babied if I say, now let's keep going, was one of the most empowering experiences of my entire life.
Yay. Because weird physiological fact, female tear ducts are smaller than male tear ducts. So even culture aside, where men are taught that they can't cry, our tear ducts fill up faster and spill over. Our cup is smaller.
Good to know. Yeah.
Weird
and
fact.
Just to set the stage for this, I've seen men cry. I've bought men that have cried, and
you should. I think it is absolute nonsense that men are told they can't cry because it 100%. Serves a specific purpose. It's literally shedding neurotransmitters from your brain.
Yeah,
that cortisol right out.
Yeah, or like somebody laughs so hard that that they cry. Yeah. Their brain is going, oh, hold on. There's way too much happy going on up in here. We need to flush out the happy.
Yeah.
That's why you feel better after a good cry.
All right. So we got a bunch of questions and, a couple of things. It's interesting. I've been lucky enough that I've, in the mid realm at least, I've had 2 dependents that both had become knighted. Both of them got knighted, Sir Jocelyn and Sir Sive, and I've got a chance to help a lot of people. Quick story. At one time I was at an event, I had literally 5 women cry while I was fighting. Sive remembers this because I had to go ask my wife. And I'm used to crying. I mean, it's no big deal. I tell people what to do. But when you get 5 of them,
I don't want to say I'm laughing at you, but I'm totally laughing at you.
So I went to my wife. I'm like, okay, am I doing something specifically that I do not know that is causing this to happen? Mm-hmm. And she didn't get a chance. I'm like, here's the people, go ask them. Yeah. And so we just happened to go out to dinner, and a couple of them were there, and they're like, I'm sorry I cried. I'm like, no big deal. It's like, you're just being, I rather you care that much about what you're doing than not. Mm-hmm. Right. And all of them were like, thank you for all of it. I'm like, okay, I didn't do anything. Thank you very much.
What you did is you made yourself the safe space. That is why everyone was crying in front of you, was because you have made it clear that is a safe thing to do.
Yeah. So, but that's my little story.
Out thinking that he was like doing something horrible and didn't realize it.
But I guess as coaches, check. There's nothing wrong with, if you're not sure you're not doing the right job, or something's happening, or you're not sure about a reaction, check with somebody. Ask later, or at least later on when everything's more calm. Ask that person if you have to. Can I help you in a different way?
That's a great way to ask. Sometimes, a lot of times, the words matter. The words always matter. Is there something I can be doing different to better support you? Is there a way I can approach something XYZ differently? And again, there's that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Only reason I apologize for interrupting. I just kind of took a time. I want you to finish your sentence, but then we're going to get to some questions, because this is about the most number of questions I have ever seen on this.
Wow. I was just going to say that gives that agency back, and it further nurtures that relationship with your teacher and that trust in that safe space. Female athletes tend to put a lot of trust in their coaches. They want a relationship with their coach. A lot of, I'll say, young men are like, he's coach because he's better than me. Teach me good. Mm-hmm. In general, women want to be able to go to their coach and be like, I'm really frustrated. I'm having a hard day, and that fencer was mean to me.
Or, in realistically, what's happening sometimes is like, okay, I went and fought them. They just keep stabbing me the same way over again. I am super frustrated. I want to know how to stop that from happening. Yeah. Right. Or I can't hit this shot. I've tried it against 10 people. What am I doing wrong? Yeah. Right. Those are the key pieces there. I'm going to go back to Tully. He has a really long one here. And I'm not sure where we're going to answer that, but I love Tully. So I'm just going to try to work through it a little bit here. For technique, you set some victory conditions, but for mental and cultural improvement, I guess, what to help people approach, let's see, how would you set victory conditions for setting mental and cultural improvements to help people who approach training in an alien way to your own? And I think, and I'm going to just, for me, I'll give a real quick answer there is, first, we have to know what that alien way is, so that we can make sure that we're setting those victory conditions to a place where they see that it's a victory, right? So it may not be technique. It may be, I want to just feel comfortable for a second. Yeah.
And we talk in therapy, we talk about when you're a therapist, always be curious. Mm-hmm. Because, especially you talk about maybe you have a student who's never done any sort of sport of any sort, or maybe any sort of competitive thing ever. They're not going to know any more than you do. No. And it's okay to be curious and explore. It's okay to say some people I've taught are like this, and some people are like this. Mm-hmm. Let's try this out. And, do you like it or no? I remember Kai would ask, okay, here's this exercise. what do you think? And I'd be like, I hate it. Do you hate it because like it's bad for you, or you hate it because you like it's hard? I'm like, I hate it because it's hard. Or like,
Okay.
no, like, or just like, it's like, whoa, stop. Like that didn't feel good. Like, let's back up.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's super important. And later in your, probably about halfway through or so, you talk a little bit about what kind of learner you are. And we've had a number of our early episodes had a number of types of learners, specifically presented by a couple of teachers and professors and us, journeymen as well. It was great because, we had Duke Eliyahu and a few others on, and I got the chance to even learn a ton. But later on, you talk about auditory learner, visual learner, kinesthetic
learners.
Kinesthetic learners. And I think that's the key is and that's just 3 types, right? And that doesn't cover necessarily, these are, hey, how they learn the best. This doesn't cover all the, how do I get over these comfortability issues on the other end of that. And that's that, safe space. We really haven't defined, we talked about safe space a lot in this episode for many times, probably half a dozen. Most of that has been around the physical environment, right? I think the key is that the safe space in that mental environment as well, that we talk about the article, and that you have to understand how that other person may see you and how they would be thinking. And it's not only mental.
Brannos, you're getting garbled.
Sorry, I might be losing some internet.
Well, you just as soon as you lean forward, you're fine.
There we go. Any better?
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, sorry, I forgot to pull that down. But yeah, so we're in, a space that, you have to get clues from seeing who you're working with, and then use those clues to try to make them feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, for Sive and I, we struggled for a long time. Go ahead, Sive. Tell us some of your struggles with me. I'm terrible.
No. Oh man. Putting me on the spot is not going to do real well. I don't know. My brain was over here looking at the paper on my side screen here and being like, we should transition into talking about the positive communication part, because that definitely helped a whole lot when we focused on that. And that was something that you kind of always did and then shifted to extra hard when you realized how very mean I am to myself.
Oh yeah.
So the positive communication, and in your paper, you give some really good examples of the difference between like, well, you screwed that up and that's why you lost, as opposed to like, well, what do you think happened there? And how about you try this, or you tell me what went wrong. And then later somewhere else, I don't have it pulled up to read directly, but there was definitely the part about giving someone the positive feedback instead of focusing on everything they did wrong, tell them the things that they did well.
Yeah.
And Brannos was extra mean to me. And instead of telling me the things I did well, he made me tell him the things I did well.
That's honestly a great way to start. And then if you missed anything, then the teacher can go in with, and these things too.
Well, yeah, because especially when we started that, it's because I was in terrible, terrible places mentally. And I was like, I suck at everything and I'm terrible at fighting and everything is awful. And so he would make me tell me 3 things that you did good today. And I would only be able to come up with 1. And so he helped me fill in the other 2 until over time I learned. And we have literally reprogrammed my brain over time to think about practice differently. And I have a much more positive and productive time at practice now, because he also took away the word can't for quite a while. I was not allowed to say I can't. So
I'm laughing because you two
him to reframe everything in a more positive way and be like, tell me what you did good, and then tell me what needs improvement, not what you did bad, what needs improvement. And I can't do the thing. No. You haven't figured it out yet.
I love it. That is positive communication right there. So and I'm laughing because you two hit on a therapy technique that I assign to a lot of my clients for the exact reason you said. It's those 3 good things. I'll tell my client every day 3 good things, just little things like I saw a puppy, and that over time retrains your brain.
Yeah, actually, there's I do a lot on the sports mental side, and there's it's funny. It starts there, and then it kind of is pulling into normal society now. Gratuity is something that's been around for a long time in sports science, but now it's really feeding into the public. Right? We should be grateful learn how to be grateful every day for stuff because it builds positivity, and that positivity, more positivity you have, one positive word can. One negative word takes 3 positive words to get past, right? It's those kinds of things. But it's the same thing. The idea, and I didn't know this, but they do now, at least they have moved to journaling in like Olympic athletes journal all the time. And they do that same scenario.
I have a fencing journal that I write down the things I'm learning and my thoughts, and I write down when I have good days, and I never write down my bad days. Because when I'm in a rut or I'm having a bad day, I'm going, I suck at everything. I'm a terrible human, and I'm an awful fencer, and I don't deserve to be a master. I look at my journal and go, oh, hey, look at these times when I didn't suck. It stands to reason I will in the future not suck again.
Yeah, I think and for us, that's a big focus. I think in a lot of what Siv and I went through. And there was days that the idea is, and for some of the teachers out there here is, you're going to find times when you're explaining something that you think they should just know, but you're coming from a different atmosphere, possibility that you have, dad played sports and you threw a ball out in the front yard and the other person never did. So the fundamental dynamic of how to do that is it's not there for them. So you have to step back. So we did that a lot with Siv, and we would just practice the same thing over and over and over again. I'm going to step, you're going to step around me. I'm going to step, you're going to step around me. I'm going to step, you're going to step around me. And then sometimes we would add the next piece to it.
Yes.
And then when it broke down and we just couldn't, I tried to get it back on track. And when it broke down enough, I could tell that she was just done. It was never going to get there. We go back to phase 1 and said, I'm going to step around me.
Yep. Just step it back. It's like, okay, let's back it up. Right. And I just saw a comment on the chat that I want to draw some attention to. And it was saying, remembering how much women frequently don't want to disappoint their teacher. There's that relationship again. There it is. Thank you. So little anecdote about me. I had a locket that I wrote on the inside, "Make him proud," for Master Kai, my teacher. And I wore that at every event. And I remember I couldn't tell you when it was. I was so frustrated. I felt like such shit. Walked off, was crying. I just about took that thing and threw it in the bushes. This close to just throwing that thing in the bushes, going, everything's awful. Luckily, one of my teammates saw me way over there, was like, that looks worse than normal, and sent Kai over. And I kept it. Nobody knew until I got my bronze ring, my grant level award, and then I gave it to him. And of course he's like, I've always been proud of you. And I'm like, I know, but it mattered, okay? And so again, there's that relationship we like to have with our coaches.
Yeah, and I think by building these relationships, you build that trust, and that trust, and by building that trust, and when they feed you something positive, then that creates confidence, and confidence creates the fundamentals of what is going to be your core competency, right? And
the better of that relationship you two have, the better you can read each other's moods, your body language. Nobody can read my body language like Master Kai can. He can just look across the room and go, breathe. There was a time he walked out of the room and I was lining up to fight, Sir Master Logos. And from the other room, I hear, Gwen, relax. You can't even see me. I know you.
It's
building trust is everything. So I guess for the folks out there asking, what can I do for women that I'm training, teaching, part of that is over time working with them to build that level of trust, because tying together with the fear of disappointing your coach, hand in hand with that, at least for me, was because I now trust you, that means I also trust that when you tell me a good thing, you did good, you did whatever, I believe it instead of thinking you're blowing smoke up my ass.
Like, well, you're supposed to say that because you're my coach.
And or because for women in, I don't know if this applies to fencing as well, but especially women in heavy fighting, because there are just so few overall, we get that sort of weird on a pedestal effect. And like, everybody thinks, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm so glad you did it. And everybody wants to encourage you and wants to see you succeed. And so a lot of people will tell you you're doing great, even when you're kind of not.
And then you're sitting here, that aspect of like, I must represent all of womankind.
Right. And also it makes you become rather distrustful of positive feedback, because when someone's like, you did so good today. And I'm like, no, that was awful. What are you talking about? So that's a whole different psychological discussion for another day. But with Brannos, with Louis, my partner, with other people that work with me a lot that I was able to build that trust with over time, was a huge thing for me, because I was able to trust that if one of them is telling me you did this good, you did this well. Yeah.
That they're not lying. They're not just trying to make you feel better. I remember when Kai would say like,
doubt.
I remember when Kai would be like, so you had an off day. That's okay. Because sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, he would always find something positive, but sometimes it's a bad day. And he validated, like, sometimes we have a bad day. That's fine.
Yeah. And
tomorrow's
in fact,
another day.
And I think the big piece for a coach is sometimes say, you have a bad, that I have bad days too.
Yeah.
Right. It's you're no different than I am.
I try to be very open with that. Even against, my own little self-consciousness, I try to be so open about these things, especially in the position of a peer, because peers look like they know everything. And I'm like, you want to know how many times I've cried? Let me tell you.
That is something, again, many things I loved about your paper that you brought up was the teachers, the coaches, the people that have reached that higher level of skill, being sure to be open about your struggles, your failures, your issues you had in the past, how you got to where you are. Transformative moments for me in my fighting career were like seeing Duke Brannos and Duke Rongvalder, the dukiest of dukes, out there practicing the basic shot technique of the most basicest of shots in the umpteenth year of their fighting career, being like, yeah, I'm not doing it right, I gotta fix that. And being like, oh, well, if you haven't actually like perfectly mastered this yet, then it's okay that I haven't.
Right?
Yeah.
And to be like, wow, I fudged that hard. Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Or there's a section in the paper about redefining victory conditions, which I love, because that really transformed how I approach events. And also remembering that, I think somebody way back in the comments had said it, that just because you get hit doesn't mean you failed. You could do everything exactly right, and maybe they just get the jump on you. Or maybe they know a trick you haven't seen, or they just got lucky. You could do or who here has seen, Star Trek, TNG? All of us, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
You can do everything exactly right and still lose.
That's correct.
And that's not failure. That's just life.
Or here's the key. Maybe they're just better than you. And that's okay too.
Yeah, it's okay.
That doesn't mean it's your end. You can actually, that should be your goal.
Or
is to find and fight people better than you.
Or there's that time when, somebody who's supposed to be not as good as you, and they just get you clean away. Well, you know what? They got the jump on me. I may feel like a little bit of a shill, but you know what? They got me good. I can at least have the grace to be happy for them.
Yeah.
While I'm also feeling bad for myself. We can do both.
So to all of the people in the comments asking, what can I do? Redefining victory conditions is good for everyone, but particularly for women, for how mean to ourselves we are. So if I can jump in with another story of transformative moments in Siv's fighting career on this topic, was I very distinctly remember a Tuesday night fight practice in the basement of the church where I'm like, I don't know, 2 years in or something, still a baby, no idea what I'm doing, trying to learn some basic concepts. And Duke Rongvalder is the partner I'm working with at the time. And Brannos is sitting there coaching me, and I'm like trying to do this shot, trying to do this thing that they're telling me to do. And at one point I finally do. I actually execute the thing like perfectly for what they were telling me to do. And Rungvalder just blocks it. And I immediately go, ugh. And they both run in to be like, no. A Duke blocked your shot and he's better than you and faster than you? I certainly hope so, but you did your thing correct. That's awesome. And they sat there and like had a little party with me. And again, that was one of those transformative, brain-changing moments of, oh, okay, my goal was do the thing. And even if he blocked it, it doesn't matter because he's better than me, especially year 2 fighter versus Duke. Like, as he said, I certainly hope he's better than you at that point.
I'm teaching, I'm like, here, I want you to execute this. And I have to tell myself, like, don't block, don't parry. Like, you executed it right. Your reward should be to strike me. Sometimes the lizard brain kicks in and goes, ah! And then I'm like, I'm sorry. You did fine. You did it so well that my brain panicked and responded.
So now I try and make a point of pointing that out to people that I'm working with. If they're throwing a thing and I still blocked it, I take that moment to call out, yes, that was it. You did the thing.
You made me
you did the thing.
You did it so well that you made my body respond automatically.
Right.
So I'm going to pop back.
Kicked in. Yes.
I'm going to pop back and we're going to show a couple here. Someone brought up a topic. She said, okay, we were saying, hey, that's a topic for a different day. But she had a question a little bit about, kind of ask men how they feel about being coached by women. Obviously see Bess or Helga on that. But, I love watching everybody teach because it brings me a lot of joy. And the second piece is there's always great stuff that you can pull and help others with and help learn how to say it different or maybe even something that you're not talking about. I talk a lot about pulling that elbow across the body. I do it naturally. It took Helga's online. She taught a class somewhere and I was watching it online and she brought it up. I'm like, bang, that's going to help people. Right. And that was just in the last probably 2 years or so. And so I think there's a lot out there. But I would say that, I'm not going to, close my eyes. There are a lot of men that are just not willing to listen.
And that's beware. Their problem.
Right. And second piece is beware. They're not willing. Some of those men are not willing to listen to other men either. So
and that's still their problem.
Well, I'd bring up one that is, having the privilege of Sadb leading the ladder work we do at practice. Yeah. I mean, she does a great job of explaining body position and explaining. I mean, I'm still trying to correct where I'm supposed to be, and I get these looks, no duck butt. Okay, I appreciate that because I need to be corrected, and so I think it's great, and I think both Sadb's class at Penzic and Antigone's class at Penzic were both real eye openers for me on how to train. So and also how to fix some problems that I have. So.
And when we talk about, inclusion and welcoming and all that, I'm going to put this in quotes because, it depends on what we're talking about. Minorities. I'm a white woman. I'm not going to really say I'm a minority other than my female status. So take that with a grain of salt. Having those individuals in positions of authority is a way to be inclusive, not just welcoming. Here is a woman. She's teaching. Here's a trans man and everybody's listening to him. You know what? I don't know, or I'm not good at that. But you know who could help you with that? Them over there. That's a way to be inclusive. And we don't always think, those of us who are like, well, duh, of course, we don't always think about it. And so even we need to be intentional. And maybe like if you're doing an event that's all teaching. Okay, I'm going to look at my roster of people. That's a lot of white dudes. Maybe I need to rethink this.
Yes. And actually, I'll give this. We were called out on that. It was just hard because we were pulling together a group of people that were really focused on teaching. And right now, the group that was focused on teaching are people that had been teaching for 20, 30 years. And that was me and Sean and Tristan. And we were doing those pieces. But then, we slowly tried to incorporate other, women into it and things like that. And we always try to find, and sometimes we try to find people that aren't belted or they're my biggest piece really to find somebody who wants to come on the show is that you have open ears to everyone. You're willing to learn just as much as other people are willing to learn, and that you can kind of drive the show. I mean, that's a big part of being on the show, and that you're not trying to just state your opinions constantly over and over again.
And like, I think like for me, the best part about being a peer is that I get to, reach my hand and say, come here. That, like, who are the new people always introduced to? This is Duke so-and-so, Baroness so-and-so, Master so-and-so. Let me introduce you to them. We are so uniquely positioned to like cement someone's love of the society forever. We're in the position to go, oh, you have an ambition, you have a dream? Here, plant it right there. And if it's starting to wilt, we can come in and we can water it and say, you've got this. Like, do I need to elbow some room for you? Here, I got this. Hey, you know who could teach at this event? This person. Mm-hmm. Last year at Constellation Academy of Defense, the focus was on newer teachers. Like, I've been fencing for almost half my life. That's a long time, like 20 years. I can teach. I have done so many classes. I can do this at the drop of a hat. You could say, Gwen, so-and-so can't come. Can you teach something? Sure, I can pull something out of my hat. But somebody once made room for me. Mm-hmm. A teacher once said, you can teach this. You know enough. And that's how then when we all get way too old and broken and tired and we're just like, oh my God, can't somebody else do this? Somebody can. Because we made room. We said, there's room on the pedestal. Come on up.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. I just... Sir Jocelyn's been coming back. She had been hurt for a little while, and she's still making her way back. Sid's working on some elbow, nerve pain stuff she's been dealing with for a long time now, but she's been kind of suffering through it. Yes. So, but thank goodness, because both of them for a while we have 5 or 6 people up on the stage, all brand new, all learning stuff. I know you guys don't get the chance to do this, but we use a lot of boffer until I feel that they're comfortable. Like most people are like, in fact, this goes both ways. I don't want to hit somebody and hurt them with a solid object. That's very hard to get over for some people, men and women.
Especially women, because little girls don't hit.
Right. And then the second one is, I don't want to be hit by these things. But as soon as you introduce foam, they're like, oh, it's foam. It's not going to hurt me as much.
Yeah.
I can't hurt somebody. And it makes it much easier to transition into learning techniques.
Yeah. And piggybacking on that, something for heavy fighting, again, not sure exactly how it translates to rapier, sort of lowering that bar a little bit with instead of skipping straight to rattan, we're going to try foam first.
Yeah.
So that it's a little more mentally comfortable. You don't have as much of that like, oh God, I'm getting hit instinct.
We don't hit people. At least in my practice, when you're new, it's like, you hit me all you like. I'm not going to hit you.
We do a lot of that, but also the having structured training, which is particularly in heavy fighting, not something that has always existed and still doesn't at every practice in every place. But we have found a lot of new people, men and women alike, but at least in my observations thus far, especially the women, because they're coming into such an unfamiliar environment, they really appreciate having the learning. And I feel it ties in a lot with things in your paper of the just feeling uncertain and not necessarily being as confident and forward and willing to try new things right out the gate. The women are a lot more comfortable with let's stand at the Pell and you walk me through this technique on how to throw that shot, how to do that block, how to do whatever the thing is, and get through that so that when they step out on the field and start sparring, they don't just like feel like a deer in headlights and don't know what to do. And a lot of men as well.
Yeah. Like we talk about people who've never done a sport before.
Yeah.
This may be one of the few times that their adrenaline has really gotten pumping. And that could be kind of a scary experience for some people, just to feel like there's this big emotion, this intensity. I don't know what to do with it. And funny thing about many women have different adrenaline curves.
Oh, yeah.
Men tend to spike and hit normal in about 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Women tend to climb for about 15 minutes and then will stay there in a way that's not always productive. Like you think, oh, your adrenaline's always going for the fight. No. So if you think of that stereotypical male-female married couple and they have an argument and 15 minutes later, he's like, so what's for dinner? And she's like, and he's like, why are you still angry? And she's like, why are you so calm? Because her adrenaline is
never seen it
up here. Yeah, she's still up here. He's up and down and he's over.
Oh, believe me, poor Sadb. I've seen Sadb just walk away from me before. She's like, I'm done with you.
Well, yeah. Communication was key when we finally learned for me to be like, I have hit peak. I need a break now. And
because it's not always a good or productive feeling.
Go take that break. And then we could actually be productive again. Whereas trying to like push through it when I was already like, again, like you said, the adrenaline curve being at the peak is not always productive. So I would be up there, but then I would hit that frustration like maximum, which more references to the paper. Audience, if you don't read the paper, read the paper. You hit that frustration max. Everything is up, spiked here. And I'm just like, and it reached the point where I just can't do anything. And so
and it's just like
taking the break to chill out allowed us to come back. And even though I was still like grumpy and unhappy, but we regulated back down to a point where we could do something and be productive.
I no longer feel like I have to punch a moose.
Yes. Well, and I think coming back is the most important part, is how you come back as a coach. And that is, you don't come back and talk about what happened, because that's done. You come back and you look and like, okay, so we were working on this. Let's take one piece of it and take a piece that you know they know how to do, and start there again. So you're starting from a good reference point of success, and then try to keep building on that
success.
And a thing that that Sai had brought up, I'm sorry if I just mispronounced your name, was I have in the paper that women our brains don't compartmentalize.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. Good.
In the way that men's do. I saw this, I think I referenced it in the paper. I saw this great comedian who was like, men's brains are like little boxes, and they take down one box at a time. And when they're done, they put the box back. And so like, I did this to my dad. You know, he's just standing there. Hey, Dad, what you thinking? Oh, nothing. Huh? I'm like, what do you mean nothing?
Does not compute.
I mean, I got a mariachi band in my head 24/7. Women's brains are like, it is like a skein of yarn that has been massively tangled. Everything touches everything at all times. And so if she had a rotten day at work, that is going to affect her night at practice. It is very, very hard for her to take that and put it away. And she may put the practicals about the frustration. She may take the practical bit, put that aside, but the frustration might still be there.
Yeah, I think, it's been interesting because we've been, working with Sadb right now. The last couple of practices, we've been working a little bit of that quiet eye stuff. And much of that quiet eye stuff is very dependent on focus, and that focus is singular, right? And that's a hard place to get to. And, right now, and, she's already a knight. She's already a great fighter. That there's no doubt in there for me. But the next piece is we're looking, and this is a brand new thing. Somebody, Sir Roisin, who I work with as well right now, she sent it to me, and I started digging in, and I find it super interesting. And it's a method I already just do.
Yeah.
But for Sadb, what we found is there's times when she misses something, or like she'll be doing something, and if it's a failure, then she loses that focus immediately. So the idea is to learn and help develop a way to learn to keep it and keep moving on. And we're working on that piece right now. I have to say, the first day we did,
like anything else.
Yeah. But the first day we did it, I was generally shocked. I mean, it's like we came from that same normal move strike scenario that we were working with to, and then just did the quiet eye piece, and she was finding times, or she opened up her offense. She found more confidence in times to throw, and those throws were more accurate.
Nice.
So it was very interesting. So we're digging into those things, but while we're digging into those things, what I'm trying to do is make her part of that learning education. Right?
Yes.
So she can help as well.
And it's okay to sometimes go, I just need a light day. Let's just. And maybe it's like, like I would like to practice a thing we've been working on. I don't want to learn anything new, or I just want to do drills, or I just want to do slow work. Like I can tell you, my 2 years of grad school, I was up to here in psychology. There was not much room for anything else. And because Kai knew me so well, he could read when he was like, your brain is already full. Let's just work on one thing. Or I've been a therapist for 10 years. We are taught how to leave work at work. But there are some days when you're just, that one's going to sit with me a little heavy. And maybe I can shed it in the hour drive to practice, or maybe not. And then I've learned that there's no shame in going, my brain is not going to take in anything new today, and that is okay. I'm going to work on my lunges or my dagger pass, or I'm just going to focus on teaching the new people today because I know I can do this, or, whatever.
Yeah. So tacking on similar experience that there was because I know I don't compartmentalize, and I've have to explain this to my friends once in a while, but so there's been so many times I would show up to practice and, work was burning me out, or I had a fight with somebody earlier in the day, or whatever it was. And I'm just mad at my body for being dumb, whatever it is. And I show up and I already know, like, my mind is already in a bad place. And I can just tell her, I'm like, today is already practically a lost day. And so we learned to sort of do exactly what you said, adapt and be like, well, great, we're not going to try and learn a new thing today. Let's pick one thing that you kind of know how to do and just focus on that real hard. And that leads me into sort of a secondary point, tying into more things from your awesome paper of empowering, like, dear people working with women or anyone, but women, help teach them to and help empower them to direct their own practice. There's a lot of confidence that comes from knowing you can walk in and be like, my brain is angry and I can't think right now. Can we pick one thing and focus on the one thing, or help redirect you to whatever the thing is? And students of all types learn how to speak up for yourself. There was something that struck me in the paper was when you pointed out the women have been conditioned to shut up and listen when the dudes try and tell them what to do. And so just coming and being like, you want me to tell you what you screwed up, is often going to get the like, sure, tell me response, whether you want it or not. And
I want to emphasize to anybody who may not know this, that's not just be polite to the men, that's safety. The speed with which our lives can be in danger in the span of no thank you.
Yeah.
And it's automatic to us, even if we know this guy. So like the phrase that I use is, would you like me to tell you what I'm seeing, or would you like to just keep fighting? I always put in the alternative so that it communicates to you, I am open and ready to hear no.
And I'm shaking my head on that one because I see it way too often where it's like, oh, I got to go in teaching mode because I know something to tell them. Sometimes they just don't want to hear it. They just want to keep
and
fighting.
It's usually so well-meaning because we're all so enthusiastic. We love what we do. We want you to be better. And sometimes it's like, I'm just here to fight. Or sometimes I just don't want to hear it from you.
Look at Sivrid smiling.
I've heard of those times. But I love the way that you tell people to rephrase it as, would you like some feedback? Would you like to know what I'm seeing? Or no is an acceptable answer.
Because as soon as I put that, I got no's. Sometimes I'll go, and no is a perfectly acceptable answer.
Yes.
And then I started getting more no's. I went, oh,
okay.
Well, okay then. And that's fine. They say no. I go, okay, let's just fight. The only time I will I'm like, you're listening, we're talking about this, is if I think it's a safety issue. If I'm like fencing, we want your knee more or less over your toe. If your knee is this way and your foot is this way, I'm like, I have to say something or you are going to blow out your knee. Yeah. But other than that.
Right. But I will say the times that I have in fact said, no, I'm not interested in feedback right now, the look of just baffled confusion on their face, because to their credit, they did ask. They were like, do you want some feedback? And they're sitting there like ready to launch into it. And I was like, no, I do not. And they went,
oh.
And you can see the palpable confusion, but they stopped and it was okay.
Yeah. I think the key there too was, at one point I gave, and this is something coaches should think about. And that is, at one point I told her that I said, you're not to fight more nights. Mm-hmm. Because the problem is we have this whole, and they're all trying to help and they all want this so bad that now you're never fighting your peers and all you have is constant learning or constant defeat.
Mm-hmm. I think, oh, what is it? Guy Windsor.
Yeah.
What is it like? When you need to win 3 out of 10. He has some ratio of optimal learning.
Ooh, I've never heard that.
And I may have the numbers wrong, but I'm just going to say 3 of 10. Like, your student should be winning the engagement or the drill or whatever it is 3 to 5 out of 10. If it's less than that, you're being a bad teacher. So, back it off.
Down.
Right.
Yeah. If it's way more than that, well, then they're ready to move on. That's either right. The new drill or go faster or whatever. Enough that I feel like, I'm getting this, but not winning so much that I'm bored. It's keeping you hungry.
Yes, 100%. And I think that was a big part, is that you give them the ability, give your students ability to say, hey, if you just want to go have fun, to go have fun. If it is, there's nothing wrong with, if somebody comes up to you and says, do you want to fight? That you say no. Yeah. I mean, that's, and I gave them the ability to say, it's like, hey, he said that, go ask him. He asked me not to fight more of these people, of you guys.
Yeah. Yes. Just always go blame your teacher. I love that one. Like, just blame me.
That was another thing that was actually very empowering for me was him giving me permission to use him as an excuse. Mm-hmm. When someone is telling me something that like I know is absolutely wild and crazy or is just in
just not going to work for you
or isn't going to work, I was given thorough permission to be like, well, could you please go tell that to my knight so that he can help me like figure that out? And that would shut down a lot of weird stuff. Or if they actually went and talked to him, then like, cool, it filtered the information through the person that is working with me and knows what I'm doing. And it either he would go, yeah, this is dumb, throw that out. Or he would be like, actually, here, let me translate that into the terms that you understand from what we've already done.
He gets to be the one who smiles and nods politely.
Yeah, that's correct.
But
that was me, maybe not.
But like as a teacher, like, when I have someone who's like, okay, I just want to take it easy today. Maybe it's because it's me. I'm like, cool. What's going on? Yeah. And not everybody wants to tell me. Yeah. But like as a teacher or just, a more experienced person at a practice, I want to check in just because like, sometimes we have a bad day or life happens. Mm-hmm. I don't want it to be a situation where somebody fell off the horse and is delaying getting back on. Because then they put it off and put it off and put it off and it gets scarier and scarier.
Harder and harder to come back on.
Yeah. And I rode horses in my youth and I can tell you that one is literal. the longer you wait to get back on the horse, that bigger that horse gets.
So we had a great point here, and that is, let me try to get my mouse over here. Here we go. And I think a couple of people touched on this on the comments, and thanks everybody for so many good questions and the conversation you're having. I think it's all of these are super important. By the way, and I'll finish this after we go through it, but I'll finish my thought. But something that is shifting culturally that I think is helping is that we're getting away from, if you're at practice, you better be fighting. And that's, we talk about really the biggest pieces we had to get, Rumfelder and I are like always like, hey, we're just grinding on the teaching. And sometimes it's like, hey, not everyone, some people just want to come to practice and have fun. There are times when people want to come to practice and have fun. And the last piece is, just practice going to practice, because if you get into practice, it's more likely they're going to want to be there more, and they want to see their friends more, and they want to get in and do the things that they're doing.
And everybody has a different reason for picking up a sword. I mean, the four of us here, I'm guessing, are pretty sword ambitious. We were all aiming for that peerage. Not everybody wants that.
Not all along.
Yeah.
I was a couple years in before I decided I really wanted to be good at this.
Yeah.
When I started, I was 100% like, no, I'm just going to mess around, have a good time.
And that's okay.
And nobody treated me like I was dumb or lesser than for that. Yeah. They adapted and were like, okay, I'm not going to spend as much time hardcore drilling with you because that's not a thing you're into. And then when I decided, no, I do want to be good at this, and I made the shift, they shifted with me.
Yeah. Because I have to remind myself, not everybody has my dream. Not everybody is as deeply into the SCA. The SCA is my community. And so when there's a new person, I'm like, let me tell you about all of the amazing things. And the other people in my practice are like, back off, Gwen. They just got here. Let them breathe.
I wouldn't know that at all. But anyways, so we got about 15 minutes left, and I'm going to throw a couple of things out there that I really enjoyed from your book. I love the, and you brought it up earlier, the difference. I'm trying to remember. It was in your other episode, and I was just on it, and I lost my page. But it's essentially about punishing people. It's the
being punished for trying.
Yeah, or just constantly hitting them, constantly hitting them. Leads to nowhere, folks.
It leads nowhere.
Get out of it. This goes into exactly what you said. If you can't win 3 times or 5 times out of 10, or they can't do it, then you got to come down and
did that
give
with
them something they
my
can do.
Teacher all the time. Here's the thing: we'd speed it up, and then I'd get sloppy. It's like, okay, slow it back down. The other thing I remember is when I was learning something new, whatever it was masks off because it reminded us to go slow.
Yeah. And
Kai would never strike me. And then he'd say, go put your mask on. Now I'm going to try to hit you. He never said, now I'm going to hit you. Now I'm going to try. Because if I do it right, I'm not going to get hit. And it reminded me of that, yeah, sure, he's worlds better than me. But if I do it right, I won't get hit.
Yeah.
Or, whatever. And if I'm missing, okay, slow it down. And then there was a point he just said, go put your mask on. I'm like, okay, now we're going to hit each other. Got it.
Exactly.
And
I think we gave
a difference.
Right. And we gave a lot of ways to do that in the heavy side. We do a lot of Pell stuff too. So they learn how to hit, they get comfortable, and they do those
without the weirdness of, I just tried to hit somebody with my full strength.
Yeah. Positive communication. I think we touched base on that one quite a bit. And I think we're probably pretty good there, but be very, very careful on negatives. I would tell all coaches out there, no matter what.
There was a good comment earlier made. Nahama made a comment earlier, which was we tend to internalize failure at getting hit and are good at convincing ourselves that failure is proof that we don't belong in the fighter space, especially those who've never engaged in combat sports. And I think that both of you are just speaking to that as how do you avoid that feeling? And one of the ways is giving a chance for success. And another way is, communicating verbally as well afterwards that, okay, you were successful even if you didn't block every
Yeah.
shot or you didn't hit every shot.
And it's never
redefining victory conditions.
And it's never, here's what you did wrong. It was, here's what I did right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, so it may be, oh, you parried a bit, you parried wide. And so I was able to come online and get you. Not, well, you did this wrong. It's like, you parried wide. And maybe it's, do you want to look at tightening up that parry or something like that?
Yep.
And like when we talk about redefining victory conditions, I still do it every event. What's my victory condition?
Yep.
And it can be one of Kai's current students. His victory condition for her at one event was, I want you to go out and fight and not get one-shotted all day. It didn't matter if she lost every single fight. She did. And she came off bouncing because she never got one shot and she was thrilled. That's a successful event.
Yep.
Maybe it's, well, what have I been working on? I've been working on this cross parry. I'm going to properly execute that cross parry 7 times today. If I do, my day was a win.
Yep. I think you have another one, observational learning. You talk about, essentially learn the skill, watch, encode, remember. And then the next piece is perform the skill, replicate, and then motivate.
Yes.
If you do not motivate, it will not ingrain. There is a dopamine piece that hits your head that essentially allows the learning process to start. There's actually more than just get to that space, but you have to be focused and you have to be successful. And that's what gets you to that dopamine place.
Yeah.
All right.
There was a whole section in there talking about how if you try the same thing over and over and it never works, then you're not going to keep trying it. And so that harks to sort of a training technique of either you need to have, if you are the trainer, and we'll shift it to that. If you are the trainer working with someone and you taught them a skill, then you either have to provide them, you have to be the Pell, fighting, but actually let the thing work, or you have to redirect them to the appropriate opponents to try the skill on, instead of being like, here, this new thrust technique that I've taught you, or this new parry technique that I've taught you, go try that with all of the mods. No, don't. Go practice that on newbie fighter Bob. Go practice that on other fighter closer to your level where it can have some success, instead of help them learn who to go practice new skills against and work your way up to after you've seen some success and figured out that it works. Then go try it on the mod. Go try it on the knight.
I always hated that fighter where I'd be like, okay, you got me the same way 5 times. What do I do? They teach me the counter, and then as soon as I do the counter, they're like, oh, well, then I just do this. Right?
Yeah, thank you. Taking my victory away from me.
Then I'm like, well, what's the point of fighting you then? If I clearly can't win, I might as well just go get a rubber band gun then.
Yep.
Or one thing I ask every time I'm fighting somebody, unless it's a tournament, I always say, what do you want from me? And I ask, what speed and intensity do you want from me? Do you want full speed? Do you want my A+ game, my A game, my B game? And I'll say, what are you working on? Is there anything I can do to set that up for you? So, because if, let's say they're a new fighter, they'll go, oh, I'm working on my parries.
Yep.
I prove absolutely nothing by kicking your butt just because I know how to disengage better than you know how to parry. I can sit here. Here. If you do it halfway right, sure. I'm not going to dig into my bag of tricks just because I can. You're not learning, and I frankly, I'm a jerk. And sometimes people are like, oh, I'm working on a thing, but I need to not tell you. Oh, okay, so you need a fully uncooperative opponent. Got it.
That's fine. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Do you want to go full speed, 3/4 speed? Do you want my A game or my B game?
Yep.
There's sometimes people are like, well, I want to know what your A game is. And I'm like, okay. It's really hard for me. That is really hard for me to be like, she said to kick her ass. It's really hard for me to do that. And then sometimes they go, okay, can we go down to B game? And part of me is like, oh, thank God. Because
So
I don't like being that jerk.
I think sometimes the hard part is you just have to, again, you're not a jerk as long as it's communicated.
Yeah.
And there is that part of the game. We talk about this a lot. And there is that part of the game where you do have to practice yourself as well and show your opponent what the top level is. Otherwise, they never really know at the top level.
Yeah.
So for us, what we talk about a lot is you bring these things up. Hey, what are we working on? You know, and then you work on those skills. And then when you're getting to the point where you're getting a little tired, it's like, okay, let's go 3 real ones.
Yeah.
And then they know.
That also helped me develop my tourney game.
That's correct. Because you're learning something. And then thank them for that.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate, and it's unusual, the sheer number of grant level and master, you know, how many bronze rings and masters of defense are at my practice.
Yeah.
Like, I think we have 7 mods and like 3 bronze rings.
Mm-hmm.
It is an amazing practice. So I can go hit up any one of them where I'm like, okay, I need to practice. I need to get my game on. And then sometimes, you know, okay, let's go for 3.
So here's, I want to bring this one up, and you know, I had like Simone Biles talk in there, but you guys kind of covered that with, you know, being the example inside the sport and things, which also brings on a lot of other things. And I think one of the biggest things it brings on is anxiety. And anxiety is a place where it's next to impossible to learn inside of. And so, you know, the ability to handle and recognize anxiety in a person is the critical part of helping them learn and helping reduce that anxiety to get into that state. Mm-hmm. So is there anything you can talk about that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a therapist. We talk about anxiety.
I know you do. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah. There's a certain level of anxiety that's productive. And then there's a certain level of anxiety that is counterproductive. Like a little bit of anxiety about your final exam is going to get your brain going better.
Right.
But then there's a point where it's like, this is not productive. I'm a terrible competitor. My whole life, before every horseback riding competition, before this, if you find me at maidens and say at a maidens before the A game, I will be sitting there with like my head in my hands going, I think I'm going to puke. I know I'm not going to, but I feel like I'm going to puke. And my teammates know, don't let her sit down. They'll say, Gwen, get up, walk around. I like mantras.
Yep.
So my mantra for me is, we are a bunch of grown-ass adults playing dress up. How seriously can I take this? I'll look to my teammate. I'll be like, Desco, tell me we're a bunch of grown-ass adults playing dress up. Thank you. Another one I teach my clients that I really like, it's a deep breathing technique.
Yeah.
I know deep breathing sounds really hokey and cliche.
No,
the reason it works for people who may not know is essentially you can't be fleeing from a tiger and taking slow, deep breaths.
That's right.
It clues your brain into the fact that there can't possibly be any danger because we're taking slow, deep breaths. What I tell my clients is to close your eyes if you're comfortable or stare off in the distance, wherever, and imagine that you're filled with some color of liquid. It doesn't matter what color. It could be puce for all I care. You take that deep breath in, and when you exhale, you visualize the level of the water or whatever the liquid is dropping a little bit. You inhale, you exhale, and you visualize it dropping a little bit each time. And if you don't know where you hold your anxiety, you're going to find out. I hold mine in my chest because every time it stalls out right in my chest for a little bit. And if I keep going, the image in my head is like the liquid is like seeping through the cracks in a floor, and then it breaks free. And you keep going until you squeeze the liquid right out your toes.
Yeah. And there's, we talk about mindful meditation and, a lot of other things around that. Box breathing can help you focus.
I love box breathing.
So, and there's some really good keys there. But I think that I really love that breathing is a fundamental. Yeah. And I think that's a really
And I like it because it's something to visualize and think about.
Very easy to do.
If I just do breathe, 1, 2, 3, out 2, 3, I start going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then this has done me nothing. And I have my ventilate and fall over.
So we got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Sadb, do you have something? Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say the way I have found to sort of combat the tourney anxiety is I end up doing sort of the like mindfulness grounding approach where I have a song. I pick a song of the day. It goes in my head. And anytime the thoughts start to wander into the anxiety thoughts like, oh no, that went badly. Oh no, this went wrong. Or even the good ones of like, yeah, I'm awesome. And I worry about getting like too cocky. Like, nope, we're singing the song. And those thoughts come. And then I'm like, nope, we're singing the song. And we just go back to that. And it has done a lot for helping ground me and just all of those thoughts just flow right back out as easy as they came in. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a big part of Musashi. You know, you don't celebrate and you don't take, you don't think about the loss. You just keep working through or the miss or whatever you want to talk.
Yeah.
You just keep working through that straight middle. Here's something to think about. I'm going to bug you later just because you've been such a good host. I mean, a good guest.
Well, thank you.
I may not be such a good host because I can't remember who's the host. But, I took a couple notes on, I hope everybody takes a chance to listen to the sword guy. And that's done by, what's guy's name? Guy Windsor. There you go. And he does a ton of stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. His podcast is great.
Yeah, it's super good. It was interesting. One thing at the end, and you guys really didn't talk about it, but you talked a little around it, and it brought something up. There's a number of things. There was a lot of mental stuff in there. There was the whole conversation about height, size. I think it actually extends to confidence. And how you handle that. I think, you guys had the conversation about, hey, tall guys win a lot. Lefties win a lot in the beginning.
Yeah. Those early successes.
People with confidence win a lot in the beginning. But so you have to, and you talked about, just saying, yeah, they win a lot in the beginning, but the people that are consistent over time win a lot at the end. And I think that's a big part, but you have to get past that barrier of these guys at the end are really good competitors and are consistent because it's when consistency means something, and that's usually later in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was a great conversation, and I thought I'd throw it out that not only is it height or right or left-handed, but there's a lot of other pieces that feed into that. And you talked about, should we classify? And we just talked about that a little bit around like women's wrestling and how they're the fastest growing sport in high school right now. Those were all co-ed teams, but now they're breaking out into men and women's. But there's a big controversy on that because the co-ed thing was, you're fighting the best. And now that the women are breaking out, you have a lot of competitors that don't have that background that the men did. So they're not getting as good a competition. I don't know if that is good or not. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, we did a little test of concept tourney maybe a year or two back where we divided all of the fencers by height. 5'9" and above over there, 5'8" and lower over there. And the breakout of wins in the 5'8" and lower, that is not, those were not the numbers we're used to seeing. So you do this enough, you know everybody.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, wait a minute. And we're like, proof of concept to a certain point, having long arms, you can just hit them when they can't reach you.
Right. And I think that plays out later when you go from that intermediate level to advanced level.
Yeah, that's when you get to where, okay, you've been getting by on your reach, your athleticism, your natural strength.
Right.
But there's a point where everybody else is going to breeze past you and you're going to have to go back to square one.
Well, and it's even harder because you never learn to learn.
Yeah.
So
when you have those really naturally gifted students who, I hated them, didn't have to study and they got straight A's. I'm like, I hate you.
I'm just bringing out points. If people haven't had a chance to listen to it, go listen to it. I will point out that the thing I think, and I bring this up with fencers all the time, but the part I miss the most, and you guys talk about teaching, you were talking about, how do if you get $1 million, what do you want to do? You're like, I want everybody to be a coach. I want to help people be coaches. And I think, the best part is that's what we're doing here, right? It's a big, huge part of why we started this show. And I love that conversation. And you're talking about stuff. It's been nice for me. I've gotten to travel the world too and do SCA coaching. And, like I'll be going to England here in March. And
lucky.
So, and I was just in Ireland, so I was lucky there too. But, So it's interesting. I love that. That's what we're doing. But I look and I'm like, you guys have this really cool thing where you have a ton of books.
Yes, we have all the historical manuals.
Right. You have people that were literally, that's all they did was teach that. And we have zero. And it always, and it's, and for us, you can go find a fencing place somewhere in your town, hopefully. Right.
Yeah.
Us, go find a rattan place in town. So
yeah,
ours is this whole new sport. And I think, I think everybody should, take it easy on yourself if you think you're not a great teacher or coach, because to tell you the truth, what we're teaching and coaching is it's a new martial art, and it's very difficult by itself. So I just want to make sure everybody knows, be good to yourself. We can take a lot from what other coaches and teachers are doing.
Oh yeah.
And then last piece, and this may be an episode, and I want to turn this probably into an episode, and that is the difference. I know a lot of people talk about this, and I know we're running just a little bit after, but and I'd like to hear what you and Sadb you have to say, and Sivrid you have to say. I think there's and you brought this up, and that is goal-oriented training, i.e., I want to be up here.
Yeah.
Compared to the idea that you're going to push through good or bad training to get to that goal. Right? Compared to education-oriented practice and consistent learning. And I think this is where we see that fall off. As much as we see early fall off on people not getting paid attention to or not getting trained right, we see another fall off of those that hit a goal and either they don't have another goal or they're not invested in constant education and learning.
We talk about the cookie.
Yeah.
When we say that, you guys probably say the same thing. I'm like, I want the cookie. What's the cookie? Peerage. It's usually what we mean. Some people just want to learn. Some people are very goal oriented. I tell people I'm gold star motivated. Good job. And I'll be like, yay, I want to do it again. And so like a thing I've been struggling with a little bit since being made a mod 2 years ago is what's my goal now?
That's correct.
I got my cookie.
Struggle many times.
And I ate it and it's delicious. And so now, and I talk to other mods and I'm finding new goals because it turns out I am goal oriented and I am gold star motivated. And so if I don't have something I'm working towards, I get bored. I want to learn.
Yeah.
And so and not everybody's like that. Some people just want to knock about, learn a few things. We have people at practice who are like, I just want to learn how to be the best fencer I can be. I don't care a jot if I get any sort of recognition about it. Cool.
Yep.
On a personal level, I'm like, that's kind of a weird concept to me on a personal level, but I get it.
For me, it's not at all.
Because
I never wanted, I didn't care if I was a knight. So
I knew I would keep fencing if I never became, like, I will constantly strive to become a mod. Even if it never happens, I'm never going to stop fencing.
I was that close to saying no when it was offered. Give you a feel.
Wow. Yeah.
All right, Sadb, go shoot.
Yeah, I heeded your many warnings and many stories and made sure that prior to being offered and prior to knowing if I was ever going to get knighted, I had already established goals that were further down the line. So like my actual goals are more of like, okay, yes, I wanted to get knighted. I did care. I do care. That was always a thing, but I moved on and went, cool, I want to get knighted. And also I want to be like good enough to be someone tapped for heroics at Penzic. And also I want to win crown. And also I want to just like ultimately be one of the top fighters in the whole SCA. And so there's always going to be something left for me to strive towards. And the thing that sort of was oddly most surprising was despite already having those longer term goals, some of which I may never actually get to, some of them I cannot be confident I will ever achieve, but they're there. Even still, after finally getting knighted, I still had that little bit of like, wait, now what? Even though I knew what, there was still that sort of moment of like, and that surprised me. I did not expect to feel quite so aimless while still having goals.
Yeah.
Something to watch out for, I guess. I don't know. It was weird. We have sort of wrapped me back around now, although my actual current goals have had to scale way back to like get fully functional arms and then think about everything else. But that's a different.
Good goal setting is here's the end goal. What are all the little goals to get me there?
Yep.
Step one,
write it down.
functional arms.
They actually talk about that a lot on a number of books around goal making and performance sports. So, Sivrid, what do you think?
I'm trying to figure out, because I mean, one of the things I was thinking about was getting good because of the practice or getting good in spite of the practice. I think when you're talking about education, goal oriented, and some people who are really goal oriented will get good in spite of the practice.
Yeah.
And other people will be getting good because the practice is bringing them along, or because the environment is bringing them along. And I think a lot of what we're talking about is how to make that environment tonight. But one of the things that mentally listening to this show, but also thinking about my fighting career, is that I want to learn. And one of my goals is just to be continually learning. And so it's a strange goal to say, well, I want to keep learning. But at the same time, you don't, because there is no end to that goal. Nope. You don't ever, you never finish. There's no finish line. But that still is the goal. And so for me, being able to go to practice, being able to test myself, being able to say, I'm going to try this new thing and see if I can get it to work. And I have to remember to learn not to try. The first person not to try it on is not Wrongwald, try to someone else first.
Good point.
Me.
But to me, the goal I've set is really just being a better fighter and being more of a challenge, being able to be a challenge to people who I'm not a challenge for them to fight yet. And that's kind of the way my mental set is. Like, well, this person can beat me handily 9 times out of 10. Okay, now I want to change that number.
Yeah. I think it's a great conversation at some point to talk through this one a little bit more, and I'm hoping we get that chance. Gwen, I tell you, I'm going to go through the whole thing again, and we're going to talk about breaking some of these out because we just barely touched on so many things. I feel like I short-suited you in this whole episode. Because
we can always do this again. This was so much fun. Much fun.
I tell you, I truly enjoy what I learned here and what I learned from reading on all of these things. And, I guess if I look at myself, my goal is to constantly keep learning. And it's a weird goal, but I love it. So I know we talked earlier about some stuff, and so I'm hoping that we get to do it again. You're a great guest. And,
wonderful.
Really
Thank you for saying so.
So, and Sivrid, thanks for doing a great job on the show. I know we were popping back and forth. I couldn't have kept up if I wanted to. You did an incredible job. And everybody knows that usually, I'm 3 people back from the people talking, and sooner or later I'll get there. But you did a much better job than me. And Siv, every time you're on the show and can talk, I tell you, I am so lucky to have had you as a squire and a friend as a knight. And I'm lucky that you still listen to me and give me time.
I feel like I got a chance to actually talk with you. This was so much fun. Because we hear about, Siv's going to be a knight. Yay. And I'm like, she probably doesn't know me from Adam.
I don't know that I could have said what your name was, but I've seen you around a whole bunch. I know who you are without necessarily knowing your name.
And then doesn't that happen in the SCA all the time?
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Who's that? I don't know. I've just seen him for 10 years.
All right. Well, thank you again. We have our next episode. I'm still trying to put it together. We do have, I believe, a Monday episode coming up, and we're going to talk about training while hurt. The idea is that, that training may be just showing up to practice. I had to do that for a while when I got my artificial shoulders done. But you remember that seeing is doing sometimes. The more you see, the more you understand. You'd be, my light bulb moment was watching something out of armor right before holidays, and it changed my fighting from what it was to what it is. So we're going to try to put some stuff around that. Right now, we're just working on some timing of some folks. We're trying to get a number of great folks on that one. And after that, there's we have some reviews coming soon. At least we're going to try to do 4 reviews a year. As Sean has video reviews, so we're going to cover some of those. And we're just going to keep working on trying to make the show good for everybody. Huge call out to Sadb for doing a couple shorts, videos for some training stuff we did in the past. We'll try to keep those going.
Try to do more. Trying to work through them one by one.
It was the number of views on it was crazy. So just give you a feel. But Gwen, please keep up with us. I really love to have you back.
Okay?
Oh,
I would love that.
Okay. And otherwise, everyone, please be safe. It's cold.
Stay warm.
Hopefully we're near past it. For all you down south, have fun sledding. And we look forward to you coming up here in the winter for a nice warm vacation. But but everybody be safe. Have a great weekend coming up, and thank you for coming to this show.
Of course.
Good night, all.
And stay on where we will have a private call.